This is the FlippingJunkie Podcast, episode 21. Welcome to the FlippingJunkie Podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week, we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. Hey guys, hope you had a good week. If this is the first time listening to the FlippingJunkie Podcast, welcome and thank you for listening. We're in the middle of a series that we're doing. Pretty much it's going to cover the entire year. And what we've decided to do is just basically go from week to week in the progress, starting with the foundation, mindset, setting up your business, all that kind of stuff, and then building up into analyzing deals, marketing, getting leads. And basically trying to do everything in order so that from week to week, the topic builds on the topic from the previous week, instead of jumping all over the place from beginner stuff to expert stuff. I want to take a sort of ordered approach to it so that when you go back, you can actually look in iTunes and basically start from the beginning or wherever you want to be and listen to each one in order so that you're actually learning what you need to learn and what I feel is a good order to learn it so that you can really make it as a house flipper in real estate investing. And so basically we're on the 5th episode right now of this training series, this Flipping Houses training series we're doing with the podcast. And we're still in the foundation stage where we help you to work on your mindset and improve yourself so that you're prepared to get out of your comfort zone and make things happen. So a lot of people, they have the idea and they hear about or see on TV shows, more likely, where people are flipping houses, so much fun, remodeling houses, and making a ton of money. And what you don't see is where people had to grow and get out of their comfort zone and do a bunch of things to get to that point. Buying a house can be a big deal for a lot of people, especially when it's an investment, and you've got a lot to learn and a lot of to deal with getting outside of your comfort zone. So that's what we're focusing on right now is the foundation stage. We've done a couple episodes now with setting goals and pillars of success and different things like that. It's really, really important. Don't brush the foundation part, mindset part off because you really have to be, have your mind right to be able to make these changes in your life and to be able to do these things. It's definitely not something you just decide to do one day and do it well. You'll find a lot of different things come up that you've got to learn how to cope with and deal with, and we're setting you up to be able to do that with these first episodes. And in addition to that, I used to release the podcast on Tuesdays, and now we're releasing them every Monday. And the reason why I wanted to do this, so while you're driving to your job that you're trying to leave behind, you can basically listen in and listen to the podcast and learn all the things that we're teaching from all the awesome people that we're interviewing that have been through it all, just like we have, and get the input on them from the specific topics as you head to that job or leave from your job. I always listen to the podcast while I'm driving to look at houses or driving all over town. I actually really look forward to it, so I find it's a good time to do that. So I wanted to release them on Monday so that Monday morning, get in the car on the way to work, you pop in. You wouldn't pop in the cassette, but you'd play on your on iTunes. You play the podcast, listen to the episode. So I'd love to get your feedback on the podcast. You can do that at our Facebook group or Facebook page at facebook.com/FlippingJunkie. And Junkie is Junkie. And also, if you wouldn't mind, leave a rating and review and also subscribe on iTunes. So that you can get each new episode as we release them. And, let 2016 be the year that you bust free and design a life on your terms. And hopefully this podcast will help you get to that. Now, today, I've got a really special guest on the show. His name is Mark Podolsky, and he flips land. He's also known as the Land Geek. And he's widely considered the country's most trusted and foremost authority on buying and selling raw, undeveloped land within the United States. And if you're thinking, well, I don't intend to do that, I intend to flip houses, you'll really want to listen because it's pretty similar. But basically, we're really just going to be focused on, when is the right time to quit your job? A lot of people, when they're getting started, struggle with when to quit their day job. It's really tempting to jump in the deep end, as soon as you get started flipping houses and quit that life-draining job. But that's usually a very bad idea. So today, Mark and I are going to talk about depending on the situation. So we're going to cover several different situations that you might find yourself in regarding what kind of income and what kind of job you currently have. And then what we feel is the best choice and when to quit that job to go full-time into real estate investing. And, more about Mark. Mark, he's been actively investing in real estate and raw land since 2001. He's completed over 5,000 unique transactions. And Mark's company, Frontier Equity Properties, LLC, is an A-plus rated Better Business Bureau real estate company. Mark's achieved this level of success largely due to his core business philosophy, which is happy customers guaranteed. Mark's a stand-up guy. I was on his podcast a couple weeks ago and really enjoyed talking with him. And that podcast that he has is the Land Geek Podcast. And the tagline there is work smart, earn more, and learn how. Mark's a great guy and really glad to have him on the show. And I hope you enjoy it. All right. So, hey, Mark, thanks for being on the show.
Danny, I've been so excited to talk to you about, everything, because I had you on my podcast and it was such a great interview. And, and I love your podcast, Flipping Junkies. It's great.
I appreciate that. And everybody should check out yours as well. I had a lot of fun recording that with you and found out some new things. And I just think that your model is awesome, which is basically sort of the question that you ask on your podcast is how other investors feel about what you do. And I think, what is it, like 99.9% of investors feel that you have one of the best passive income models?
Yeah, the best passive income model. No tenants, no toilets, no termites, no trash.
Right. Those are all the fun things, though. Come on.
No, I know. Yeah.
But all right, well, so let's just get started. Let people sort of know a little bit about you and why and how you got started in real estate investing.
Yeah. I kind of fell into it. It was kind of one of those weird things. I had a horrible corporate job. I was an investment banker, and I worked with private equity groups doing mergers and acquisitions for mid-market companies. And so I'm looking at companies all day long, right? And, a great company has 15% EBIT margins or higher, free cash flow. Your average company is at 10%. And I'm looking at a lot of companies that are below average. So, and I'm just miserable. I'm being micromanaged. I hate the culture, very competitive, long hours, right? 45-minute commute to work and back. I wouldn't even get the Sunday blues, Danny. I'd get the Friday blues, anticipating the weekend going by fast and Monday coming.
Oh, wow. That's not a good place.
It was not a good place. So we hire this guy and we start talking. He's telling me that on the side, he's going to these tax deed auctions and he's buying up land for like nothing, like pennies on the dollar. And he's flipping them online and he's making 300% return on investment. So Danny, I'm looking at these companies all day long. I mean, a great company's at 15%. So I'm from St. Louis, right? I'm from the show me state. I don't believe him. So he's like, okay, let's go to one together. So I've got like $3,000 saved up for car repairs. And I go to this, and I know nothing, right? Only piece of real estate I ever bought was my house at that point. And I go to this auction. We drive around this little rural area in New Mexico. And sure enough, there's half-acre parcels going for nothing. I bought 10 parcels that day for $300 a lot, right?
Wow. Yeah.
After the auction, we get the plat maps. We talk to the Chamber of Commerce. We get all the information. And sure enough, I get all that information. I put them up online. And they all sell within 30 days at an average price of $1,200 each. 300%. Nice. He was right. So I took all that money and I went to another auction in Arizona. And there was no one in the room. I mean, I'm buying properties for $3, $5, $10. Nothing, right? Nobody wants these lots. Flipped them online, and I made over $90,000 in 6 months on that second auction. And that's what I said to my wife. I'm like, honey, I think I'm onto something here. I want to quit my job. Guess what she said to me?
What did she say?
Absolutely not. So, so I said, look, uh, you know, just, it's going to be okay. And, the worst case scenario is we own land because she's like, her big fear was if we spend all this money, we buy all this land, what if you can't sell it? I'm like, that's the worst case is we own land. I'll
Right.
go get another job. So she's like, look, at that time she was pregnant, right? So she's like, let's just wait for the baby. So I really toiled for 18 months part time in raw land until the land income exceeded the investment banking income. And that's when I quit. And I've been doing it ever since 2001. That's when I quit.
Nice. Yeah. So that's what, 15 years now.
15 years.
Yeah. And that ties in very nicely with the topic for today, which is when should people quit their day job? And I think, you sort of summed it up right there with my take on it. And I think that's probably going to be what you talk about with your take on when people should. And, it's funny that you mentioned your wife was, even after making that money like you made and showing her that it was actually, absolutely feasible, that still you cling to the security of the job and the paycheck. And I did the same thing. I think it took me 2.5, 3 years part-time, before I went full-time. And, I was myself even sort of clinging to the security and just getting that steady paycheck. Even though it was smaller than all the other paychecks that you get from flipping houses.
Right, right. I mean, it's one thing to say, as an outsider, hey, fight through the fear, right? Life is short, all these kind of nice platitudes, right? But to actually do it is and live through it, and and know that, oh my gosh, I've got dependents on me,
Right.
right? Your wife and your children, and they're affected by these decisions. You don't just make them that quickly, right? You kind of dip your toe in the water. You kind of you wrestle with that fear for a long time until you get to the other side of it. I mean, don't you think?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's, um, I think the question is sort of like Melissa, my wife, my father-in-law, her dad, whenever we were, getting into the business and everything, his question was, don't you think that it could change? Like, don't you think, don't you worry that things could go south? And, the concern that, us being in business for ourselves, we would be exposed to that risk. When it's kind of funny when you think about it, because working for another company, depending on the company you work for, they have the same risk as well. So, what you think is so secure might not be as secure as you think. But he was just watching out for us, and luckily everything went great and went better than great. But
Right.
there is that concern.
You know,
So
you know, what's so funny about that? And I'm going to play this little video for you if you don't mind.
I'll go for it.
Because it when I heard it for the first time, I thought, oh my gosh, that is the perfect response to the in-laws or the parents saying to you, you know, you should do this nice kind of steady, safe thing, right? And don't really go for it, right? Here it
Right.
is. This is Jim Carrey. I wanted to play this for you.
Cool.
Spend your whole life imagining ghosts, worrying about the pathway to the future, but all there will ever be is what's happening here, and the decisions we make in this moment, which are based in either love or fear. So many of us choose our path out of fear disguised as practicality. What we really want seems impossibly out of reach and ridiculous to expect, so we never dare to ask the universe for it. I'm saying, I'm the proof that you can ask the universe for it. My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
What do you think of
Nice.
that? You can
Yeah.
fail at what you don't love,
Mm-hmm.
right? So And I wish I had a mentor at that time when I was, in doing the investment banking thing. Like, you can fail at this and you're miserable.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's incredible. That was a great. What is that from? Did he give some sort of?
Yeah, that's a commencement speech from some Maharishi University. He's very into like Zen Buddhism or mindfulness meditation, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so that's cool. I'm actually getting into a little bit of, more of for self-improvement and things, working on myself is a big part of my 2016 goals. But yeah, so that's incredible. And I think a lot of it is, whenever you hear messages like that, like there's, some people may have heard things like that before and didn't let it resonate with them because they weren't maybe at that level maturity-wise, like mature in their development, personal development. And
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, it's hard to kind of break through that mold, right? And honestly, your parents are the last person you should listen to. I've got 3 kids, and what do I say to them all the time, Danny? What do you say to your kids all the time?
don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful, right? And what do they learn in school? Don't make a mistake, right? You get punished for making mistakes in our school system, and it's kind of backwards because in business you got to go for it, you got to fail fast. Right. Those are the people that are moving and they're failing and they're adjusting and they're embracing the suck. They're, when you're kind of comfortable being uncomfortable, they're the ones that make the difference.
Right, and because they're growing by making those mistakes.
Yeah, you got to grow.
And learning from them, right?
Exactly. I mean, nobody wakes up, a seasoned investor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's real easy to see when somebody's successful and to think, that they got lucky, that it happened very fast for them. It happened in a matter of a couple months. But the hard work and the frustrations and the problems that arose and the failures, you don't typically hear about all those. So let's get into what the different scenarios. So what I was thinking about when I was thinking about doing this episode was basically, one size doesn't fit all because everybody's in a different place in their life. And, so I thought of 3 different scenarios that I want to ask you about with where people might find themselves right now listening to this, wanting to get into flipping houses, real estate investment, even flipping land. But, the first one being, so let's say somebody, say in college, they're realizing that the corporate world maybe isn't what they really want. They've got an opportunity to live with their parents, save money that way, and they're single, so they don't have to support a family. So, they don't really have much money, though, because they're not really working or maybe at just an entry-level job. For somebody that finds himself in that situation, what would you recommend be their sort of path and to getting to where they can, either quit their job or change the path that they're taking by going to college?
Yeah, I mean, I think that stage of life is the point where you go for it, right? I mean, if you look at times in history, it's the great geniuses, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Einstein, they kind of made these amazing things happen in their 20s, like mid 20s. It's like you're never any smarter than you are, and more energetic than you are like from 24 to 28, right? If you talk to like Kleiner Perkins and these big VC companies, these young founders of these tech companies are typically in their mid 20s, and they've just got that drive and ambition, and they haven't been beaten up by life yet, right?
Yeah.
I think that's when you go for it. I don't think you need money, Danny. I think you need ambition, you need drive, you need to be fearless, and you just go for it. You go for your dreams, and you go big, and you fail big, because it's not so bad at that point, right?
Right.
And I think the reason, like, I didn't do it, or maybe if you didn't do it in our 20s, was number one, we didn't want to disappoint our parents, right? It wasn't even in our consciousness. We didn't have anyone kind of guiding us, right? So we didn't have a mentor in a place to say, hey, you should really be going for it. Like, I wouldn't be getting a corporate job right out of college. Like, go for your dreams, whatever they are. Well, I don't know what my dream is, is, well, what'd you like to do as a kid, right? What was your kind of passion there? Like, or just get really, really good at something that you think you'd like at that point. Like, I really think, I know the 20s is most people are trying to figure out work in that kind of time period. But I think if you're going to really, make a dent in the universe, there's no better time in life because you can live on ramen noodles. You can have fun with your friends. You don't need a lot of money, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, and usually the two things that stop people are fear and disappointing the family, right? You don't want to disappoint your parents. They spent all this money, or I've got debt from college, and boy, I better get going and be an adult now.
Right. And I started when I think I was about 25, but in college, I remember I knew a couple guys that were doing, creating a business, and it was more of a software business. And I remember thinking back then, I wonder how they're able to do that. Like, I didn't feel like that was possible for me, even in college, even though I saw other people that were doing it. I just felt like they had the connections, or they had, something else, and it just wasn't, something that was possible for me. So my path, I just had the blinders on, and my path was basically to get out and get the job. And I think that really limited myself. And I'm glad after college, I quickly realized that wasn't true, that I could have done, had I just, spent more time with them and talked with them and asked them how they did it, I would have found that wasn't true. All those preconceived, all those notions that I had weren't really true.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like this weird how-to barrier. It's like you can't do anything until you know how to do every step of it. Well, that's, just do the first step, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You figure out the next one. But if you're young and it's like you don't know what you don't know, it kills you. So you don't even take that first step because you keep thinking, well, I'm gonna fail then because I don't know how to do it. Well, just, no one knows.
Right.
Right.
But it's possible, and it's the key there is finding the people, and they're sort of, by listening to this podcast, listening to your podcast, they're sort of getting access to those people that are already doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're getting all this information and realizing what is possible, and it is possible for you no matter where you're starting out.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Danny, we had to read books. Now you can,
Well, that had,
now you can listen to audiobooks, and you can be in your car and you can listen to podcasts of people who are like amazing.
Well, I had the CDs. I had CDs that we drove our kids nuts with, that we were driving around neighborhoods listening to these CDs talking about how to invest in real estate.
Oh, yeah. See, I think you're a lot younger than me. I had like the cassette tape.
Uh-oh.
Well,
I did have a dusty old VHS tape. I think it was Carlton Sheets or somebody.
Yeah. Carlton Sheets was huge.
All right, but so if they're starting in college and maybe they don't have a lot of money, I mean, what are some tips for those first initial actions? Like you were talking about, you were saying, just take some of those initial actions. You might fail, but go ahead and fail. You don't have a whole lot, writing on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that first initial action has to be find a Danny Johnson, right? And find someone who's doing what you want to do. And if you got to carry the briefcase around for a year, carry the briefcase around for a year, and do it that way.
And where's a good place for them to find that in their area?
Yeah, I mean, go to a RIA meeting. If we're just talking about real estate, go to your local RIA meeting. I mean, start meeting people. Start talking about your dreams and what you want to do. And people want to help other people. I mean, I find that all the time. People are unbelievably generous when you ask. If you don't ask, people don't know. And so I think if you're in that situation where you don't have any money, but you got tons of passion and you want to start being a professional real estate investor, find the best real estate investor locally. And
right, ask other people who's the top investor in town, right?
Who's the top guy in town or gal in town? How can I meet them? And how can I talk to them about, my vision and my dreams, and maybe they can steer me in the right direction. Maybe I can hold their briefcase for a year. and just learn from them. You
Right.
know?
Just as long as you don't walk up to them and just grab their briefcase, you know?
Yeah, don't just grab their
No.
briefcase, but you try to add some value to them too. Like, don't.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to be like, look, I'll make your life better being in it, and I'll add value, and in exchange, through osmosis, I'll learn a lot from you, and
Right.
and I think if you're, I have a feeling that's a real nice ego boost for those people too, right? And
Absolutely.
they see themselves in you, and they're like, boy, wouldn't that have been great if I had someone like that too in my life? And maybe they did, and they want to pay it forward.
Right.
So I think I think this is gold, Danny, what we're giving out.
Yeah, and let's talk about so what are some because some people say, oh, add value. Well, how can I add value? I don't know what to do and what that exactly means. So
Ask, how can I add value? What?
yeah, and
Yeah.
even other things as simple as combing Craigslist in your town for anything that shows like somebody selling a property that has motivation.
Yeah.
Calling all those and then coming to the re-meeting or meeting with that person and say, I got all these leads that I found, or having something showing that you're out there hustling and you're hitting the streets, you're talking to people, you've got a list of contractors that you found while driving around looking for vacant houses. Show that you're willing to do the work before they tell you what to do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or find out what's their biggest pain point, and then
Yeah,
go out there and solve it for them.
I like that
Look,
one.
I
Right.
did that. Yeah. Like, here, look what I can do for you.
Right. Yeah. What's a big time drain for you? And then offering. So if it's, maybe they're spending a lot of time going to Home Depot or something.
Yeah, yeah, I'll be your Home Depot person.
Right. So yeah, awesome idea. So let's get on to the second scenario. Because of that first one, we're kind of saying that there basically isn't a whole lot of, there's not really a job that they're leaving, quitting their day job. So it's sort of just jumping in and doing it. But in the second scenario, there's probably a large proportion of people in this scenario, and that's working sort of at a lower paying job that might just be above minimum wage or just enough to support your family and your lifestyle, and don't really have much money available at the end of each month. So they might be on a shoestring budget for finding deals. What do you recommend for that person that really wants to stop trading dollars for hours and provide a lot more for their family?
Yeah, I think that's where the side hustle is so important. You've got to manufacture hours for yourself if you're in that situation. You've got to get up an hour earlier, you've got to go to bed an hour later, and you've got to get educated, right?
Right.
And you've got to get educated almost in two spots, right? Number one, you've got to create a more valuable skill. If you're in an entry level job and you're providing for a family and you're barely scraping by, you got to get out of that entry level job and move up, right? And there's so many ways now, inexpensive ways to create value on the side. You could do Fiverr gigs, you could do Uber. I mean, the connection economy, it's endless. You could do an Amazon FBA associate. I've got a friend on the weekends, him and his wife, they go out with their iPhones and they scan, books at garage sales for like a penny to 10 cents, and they sell them online on Amazon for $500 to $500, right? I think they're making an extra $3,000 a month. That can move the needle if you're in an entry level position, but that's what you need to do, right?
Right.
You really gotta make more money, because it's not about you anymore, like that first scenario, right? Now you've got a responsibility to your family. You have an ethical duty, you have an ethical obligation to be as successful as possible for those people, and you've got to do whatever you can do. You know, at that point, once you've got, I mean, if you've ever looked into a baby's eyes, man, throw the excuses out. It's all on you, right?
Right.
And if you're
Yeah,
in,
let that motivate you, right?
let that motivate you. I mean, you should not be in an entry level job anymore. And if you are, get out of it and figure out how to get out of it. You got to get more education. You got to get more skills. You got to be able to create more value. And there's millions of ways to do that. I mean, I just gave you a bunch of different scenarios. Once you're doing that, right, then you go into your other side hustle, which would be more real estate education. And then you're going to find somebody who has more money than they have time, and they're going to JV with you on these deals.
And JV stands for
joint venture with you on the deal. Right. So they're going to bring in the money, and you're going to bring in the expertise, and you guys can split that, or and do it that way. And then eventually, as you start building up your confidence and you become more seasoned, hopefully you're out of your entry level situation by that point, and then you can start really, hopefully, kind of going to where I was, where the investment income is predictable enough where you can finally say to yourself, okay, I can quit my job now and then do this actually in a bigger way and scale it so that, you're not creating another job for yourself. Now you're creating a business. But I think you need to have those things in place first. Otherwise, I think you're really being irresponsible.
Right. And so, and I think basically the way I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think it was really well said, is basically that, you have to improve yourself first. You have to get to the point where you are more valuable and that you have more confidence and are willing to do and think about where you're at and where you're going, and letting your responsibilities sort of motivate you so that you always have that reason why to get out of that comfort zone. Stop watching the TV all the time. It's real easy to get home after work exhausted and just, you just want to veg out. You just want to lay there, sit on the couch and watch TV and just let your mind go, right?
Yeah. And you know what the cure for that is? I call it the Powerball cure, right? Remember the recent Powerball, Danny?
Yeah.
Right? It was $1 billion.
Oh, was it $1 billion? See, I just had heard from somebody else about it. Was really crazy, but
wow. It was $1 billion, and people were lining up for the Powerball, and they're all excited about it, right? Now their odds of winning were very low, but they are manufacturing energy by having this, by imagining, by have a vision board, right? Create a vision board of you being a billionaire or whatever it is, and write down goals not once a year, write them every day.
Yes.
I will have a net worth of $100 million. It's a different feeling of, I will, I will get a 2% raise this year. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
One doesn't really excite you. The other one does, right? If you're going to say to yourself, I will have $100 million in net worth, right? You're probably going to have more energy than the other guy or gal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the whole, write them down daily, because what you're doing is basically what Jim Carrey said in that clip that you played. You're basically asking the universe and asking God if if that's your preference. But, it's basically if you don't ask for it, how do you ever expect to get it?
Yeah, absolutely. And do these things to give yourself more energy. Energy is limitless, right? It's limitless. And here's a great example, Danny. Remember when we met our gals, and you stayed up all night, right?
Yeah.
Talking? Where'd that energy come from? Right? Or, you're exhausted from a long day. You worked a 12-hour day, and you say goodnight, and you're just, your head hits the pillow, and you're so tired. All of a sudden, half hour later, you haven't hit REM sleep yet, and the doorbell rings, and it's your best friend from school, right? You're not saying, oh, hey, I'm so exhausted, I'm going to bed. You're going out, you're hitting the bars, you're reminiscing, you stay up all night, you're partying all of a sudden. Where'd that energy come from? Right?
Right. Yeah, you manufacture it. You manufacture it yourself. You get pumped and motivated to do all these things. It's exciting. And so, yeah, and that's exactly what happened to me in my earlier 20s. And you can do that later in life, I'm sure. And I still have to force myself sometimes to get the energy, but you choose to have it. You choose to not sit there and watch TV. You choose instead to work on your fortune, to work on your future, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why you have to have this big why, this big purpose to do that. If, because money doesn't make anybody happy, right? I mean, there's been study after study. After like $75,000, your happiness threshold is very incremental. So, if I gave you $1 billion tomorrow, Danny, you probably wouldn't move the needle that much in your life. You get the big car, you get the big house, right? You'd probably go on a couple of nice vacations. You'd get a jet. And then what, right? So and this actually happened to my mentor. He sold his company for $360 million. I met him for coffee, and he was miserable. And he's like, Mark, I'm miserable. And I said, oh, I'm so excited for you. Like he's like, I'm absolutely miserable. And why do you think he was so miserable?
Because they didn't have anything to work towards, right?
He did it. Yeah. He climbed the mountain. He made it.
Right.
So
That's like they say for astronauts, right? After going to the moon and then coming back, they had sort of reached the pinnacle, and then, they were depressed.
yeah, he started another company, and now he's happy again. So, he needs another mountain to climb. It's like when we were kids, right? We don't stop playing with Legos, right? After we complete the Lego. We're
Right.
like, okay, look, mom and dad, look what I made, right? Then they're like, they don't go out and buy themselves a candy bar and hang around for 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah,
They
so
go to the next project.
Yeah, and this all boils down to mindset. So getting your reason why, and determining where you want to be exactly, very clearly, not just I want to make a ton of money. You got to get down to the very specific why, and usually it's for the family, right? And to have the time, the freedom to be your own boss, to go on vacation for as long and whenever you want. All those things, and write them down. Look at them daily. Let that motivate you to at least cut down a lot on watching TV and spending that time maybe driving around neighborhoods looking for vacant houses that are run down, to get that start. And then, I'm trying to stay on task a little bit more about, this about when to quit the job. So let's talk a little bit more about, for the person that isn't making much more over what they spend every month, trying to support their family, have obligations. Now making that transition. So let's say they've done a little bit and they've, say they maybe flipped a couple houses and they're tempted, they made the big paychecks, but they're not real consistent with their marketing. They're not real consistent with anything else. Where do you feel is the right opportune time for them to walk away from that job? How can they decide on that?
That's a really good question. And I think that person has to have systems and processes in place and a team in place, right? Where they've got something predictable. If it's one-offs, that's not a business,
Right.
right? So a business has some predictable generating revenue. And a business should be able to operate without you. Otherwise, you just create another job for yourself. So I think as you scale and as you're getting more deals under your belt, right, you start, looking back, well, how did I do this? And how can I do it so it's not me doing it, right? And having that discipline. So again, that becomes your focus, is, doing more deals. So if you're doing a deal a month, well, how do I get to 4 deals a month, right? And what does that look like? And where does that come into play? And how do I do that? And then once you spreadsheet that out and see, okay, after 3 months, I did, 12 deals, and it becomes, a more predictable and more like a machine. Well, then you save all that money and you start really creating a plan. So you've got to have that plan at that point. So it just depends on your finances, right? And your overhead and what you want to do. I mean, gosh, I remember listening to the editor of Wired, Kevin Kelly, interviewed, and he said, most people, they really don't need nearly the amount of money as they think they do. And he said, the happiest I was in life was when I was backpacking through Asia, and I was living on like rice and beans, and he was living on like $3 a day. And he said to himself, if it all went to hell, right, I was pretty happy backpacking through Asia on $3 a day.
Right.
And he's like, and if I had kids, he was saying it for his kids, what the toys they like to play with, Danny? They like playing with the pots and pans in a box. They didn't need toys. They could make their own toys. So he didn't think that the kids needed that much. And his spouse, if they were seeing eye to eye on that, I don't know. I think he was onto something. I almost think that there's an inverse proportion to the size of your house and how happy you are. Right?
Wow.
If you ever saw that documentary about, what was it, the Queen of Versailles, and they're building like the timeshare guy is building the biggest house in Florida. Did you see that?
I didn't see that. No.
I don't know, but he's miserable, right? And it's like 2008.
He's miserable.
His wife hates him. The kids hate him. He's screaming at them. Turn the electricity on, right? So, I think that at that point, you can keep your overhead low, and figure out, okay, what really makes me happy, because again, I don't think the stuff is really going to make you happy. I think that's all ego, right?
Right.
I know some people who are so poor, all they have is money. Do you know some people like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes in really nicely with the next scenario, which is the third scenario of the three. And that's somebody working a corporate job, making a decent salary. It's sufficient for themselves and their family. They've got some extra money. They can afford to take a little bit of time off. And what do you recommend for them? Because for them, it's maybe a little bit more tempting to exit the rat race and just go out there and make a go of this, because they have a little bit of money saved up. And I'm saying it ties into that nicely because of the whole, even having more by, deciding that you don't need as much as you have. But go ahead and, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're sitting in a cubicle right now at Procter and Gamble making $85,000 a year, miserable, quit today, right? Or at least have a plan for it, because guess what? Worst case scenario, you dust off the resume and you get another Procter and Gamble job in another cubicle.
Yeah.
It's just a different headquarters, right? If you're valuable enough to be in a big corporate, cog in that wheel, you can do that again, right? So it goes back to that Jim Carrey thing. You can fail at something you hate, but if you've gotten to that point where you've got a big enough skill set where a big company or a small company is paying you a nice salary, right? I say go for it, right? Why? Life's short. Why be unhappy?
Right. So you wouldn't even recommend, some part-time education and maybe doing some deals first?
No, I would, but I'd really be aggressive with it. I wouldn't, at that point, my fear at that point would kind of be real tamped down compared to, so my fear would be really tapped down for scenario 1 and scenario 3. Scenario 2, I'm scared for them,
Mm-hmm.
because they have so much to do. 1 and 3, I think they should fight it and they should go for it. And if they're going to fail big, right? I mean, that's what they should do. I wouldn't fail small for either one of those scenarios.
Right. So with a little bit of money, what's a quick way maybe to getting those first deals under their belt so that they can feel more comfortable and know what they're getting into? Because without having done some deals, there's still a lot that probably needs to be learned through actual action. So maybe what are some of the quick steps to putting some deals under your belt as quick as possible if you've got some money?
Well, if you got some money, then you've got to figure out the business fast, right? I mean, find a Danny Johnson, and again, have a benchmark and start, going to RIA meetings. You got to get educated, don't you? I mean, you got to kind of know what you're doing, and then start doing deals and just start taking. I would just start taking massive action on the weekends, in the morning, at night, and have this plan. And I would give myself a deadline, right? I would say in the next 90 days, I'm going to do this many deals, and do it, right? Does that make sense? You like that?
No, it does. Yeah.
Do you think it's too aggressive, Danny? Am I giving irresponsible advice?
No.
Do you think it's irresponsible?
No, it's not. No, it's nice because it's not the be timid, take a little step here, take a little step there. I mean, as long as you set the goal and know that it's very, very well possible to do it within several months, definitely less than a year, to start getting calls and for leads, doing some marketing, getting some stuff, working with somebody, maybe partnering with somebody, and then it's got more experience that can mentor you, and then just like going all out, finding what works and then scaling up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I agree. I mean, I don't know, man. I think that it's tough to kind of, everyone's situation is different, but I do think that in general, if you're comfortable, you should be uncomfortable, right? Like I've done over 5,000 land flips, and I'm still anxious all the time that I'm not doing more, I'm not learning more. I'm always trying to learn more and get better at what I'm doing. And I think for the people in scenario 3, they should really watch this documentary, Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Did you ever see that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh
No.
my gosh, this guy's 88 years old. He's got a little sushi place in a subway in Tokyo, and he is the only 3-star Michelin winner in Japan.
Wow.
And he's renowned as the best sushi chef in the world. This very simple thing, Danny. He's taking slicing a little bit of raw fish. He's putting on a little thing of rice, a little wasabi, and yet when you watch him do it, he's constantly trying to get better every single day, and he loves it. He wakes up early. He's 88 years old. His poor sons, he won't let them take over the business. He had to have a heart attack before he let his son go to the fish market. He was like 70. I mean,
Wow.
He loves it. He loves it, and he's never satisfied, right? He's got that fire in his belly. He doesn't know where the pinnacle is, so he just keeps working at it day in and day out. Now, if we apply that to real estate, then that means that you're constantly trying to grow and improve, and you're never comfortable. You never just sit back and like, oh my gosh, I just closed the deal and I made $30,000 on that house flip, right? Then it should be like, hey, well, how can I make $90,000 next month
Right.
on the next 3 house flips? And
Right. Yeah, and that's a good way to gauge things, because people that are maybe stuck in analysis paralysis where they're learning, but not taking action, like if they do that simple test with themselves that you said, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing enough. You're not doing the right things maybe.
yeah, exactly. And it's okay to make mistakes. I mean, you're going to. I make mistakes all the time, but you've got to learn from them. But that's the thing is like, I think if you've got analysis paralysis, that's tough. That's a tough one to do in business because it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah, you got to let go.
You gotta
You got to take some risk, right?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to the beginning of the conversation. Like we're kind of all brainwashed from school. Like, don't make a mistake. You're not gonna get an A, right?
It's funny that you said too, where you still have anxiety, because I still have anxiety. We've done hundreds of deals, and I think that's true for most people. It's sort of a risk, and it's just a very well managed risk, and we keep learning, but that keeps us fired up and keeps us going, right?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, we're in a market. The market goes up, the market goes down. There's lots of variables in business that we don't control, right? So it's scary out there, right? I always talk to my friends who have a job. I'm like, what's it like? What's it like when that money magically goes into your account with you,
Right.
And they're like, well, I'm actually, using my time to get that money. I'm like, yeah, but it magically comes in. Like, you didn't have to do any. I mean, like obviously they had to do something, but in my head, it's like they've got this, this safety net that we don't as entrepreneurs, right? So we have to kind of, we only eat what we kill, in a way, which is scary, but I love it. I wouldn't want
It's
it any other way.
a lot more adventurous.
Yeah.
So I think that's we can end here on the discussion. I think it helps with people to determine when to quit that day job. And I think the consensus basically is, if you're in a scenario where you don't have a lot of responsibilities already, and you've got some money and some education or something like that, or a way to get back into having a well-paying job, then go all out. Get educated, do some deals first. I never ever recommend people quit any kind of job that's providing money to live on if they hadn't even done a deal yet, because you don't necessarily know exactly what all could take place or how it actually works or whether you even enjoy it. You might like the idea of it, but when you get into actually doing it, it might just not be for you. And if you're in maybe the second scenario where you don't have a very high paying job, you don't have a high paying job and you're just barely getting by for you and your family, and you do have a family to support, then like Mark said, you've really got to become more valuable for yourself to up your income and work at it from that angle. So you do have something to fall back on a little bit. Would you say that's correct, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And at that point, you got to get real serious about life. Louis C.K. struggled as a comedian his whole life until he had children. And he was like, holy cow, I better get it together. And he did.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Now he's Louis C.K. Where, when I say the name, everybody knows him, right?
Right.
But until then, you didn't know who Louis C.K. was.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show, Mark. I think, the audience got a lot out of it. And, where can people find you? If people want to contact you, get in touch with you, where can they find you?
So I think the best place to go is thelandgeek.com, thelandgeek.com. And they can always listen to our podcast together on my podcast, The Best Passive Income Model Podcast, on iTunes as well.
Right, definitely check it out. And I will have links to those things on the show notes page, which is at FlippingJunkie.com/21. FlippingJunkie.com/21. You'll find show notes and then links to Mark's website and everything. And so thanks again for being on the show, Mark.
Oh gosh, Danny, thank you. It's I'm just thrilled and honored to be able to talk to you again. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Danny.
Yep. All right, thanks for joining us this week and listening to the Flipping Junkie podcast. I really, really appreciate it. And if you would, subscribe on iTunes so that you can listen in next week. And every coming week on Monday, we'll be releasing a new episode. And we're moving right now through the foundation part of the series on flipping houses. So make sure that you subscribe. And this podcast and my being able to have the time to do it is made possible by our own flipping business, but also by our real estate investor websites at leadpropeller.com. If you're looking to market for motivated sellers and you want to be online and have a web presence, we make it very easy to do so with our real estate investor websites. We have this nice feature that allows you to get a text message as soon as somebody submits a form on your website. And what that allows you to do is to be able to contact them right away, because you know immediately as soon as they click the button to submit information to you. And then you can call them, and basically what that does allow you to avoid a lot of the competition, because you can set an appointment with them, talk with them, and help them to feel like they've accomplished what they set out to. So they'll be much less likely to contact other people in your market, and you will be much more likely to be the only one going over there to look at the house and make an offer. And then also be sure to check out our CRM software system for real estate investors that leads from your Lead Propeller website can go directly into, and you can find that at reimobile.com. REI for real estate investor, and then mobile.com. And that's currently in beta. Check it out. We've got a lot of cool things coming with that, and with Lead Propeller, we're constantly making improvements and changes. So be sure to check those out. Hey, thanks again for listening, and have a great week.